Welcome to the Folk School on Willow Creek, featuring University Distinguished Professor Tom Ezern, singing and telling stories from the salon on Willow Creek.
I need a bed for the 9 boys and my horses need hay. I've been riding that grub line on the hottish highway. Eastern hill and valley, from ocean's distant shore, we come with hearts rejoicing, and on by thousands pour. 'Tis freedom calls us hither, for freedom's sake we're on. The western wilds in freedom's call make our happy home. Going to pause for a moment here, right in the middle of our opening number, to tell you what we're singing about here, and Suzanne will be reading about here also, just right shortly. I've just begun singing the first stanza of the Song of the Kanzas Immigrants. And if you recognize the tune, you might be a little bit old-fashioned evangelical. It's to the tune of From Greenland's Icy Mountains, a missionary song. And where I'm lifting it from is from a remarkable publication. You know, in the 1850s, when the frontier of slavery and free soil was on the Kansas border, and people from across in Missouri were riding across to try to make the territory into a slave state. And people in the northeastern United States and New England were organizing to try to do the opposite, to save Kansas for free soil. And that led to the founding of the new Immigrant Aid Society, which sent out one party of immigrants, and they took up residence out there on the call. And then they organized a second, larger party to come out. And when they did that, I kid you not, they published a songbook to send it with them. Now, you've heard the famous Beecher Bibles, which are, of course, Sharp's carbines that the New England Emigrant Aid Society sported in order to back up their convictions with force of arms. But there were also musical instruments and, bless their hearts, ballads. I have here, this is from Kansas State Historical Society, their Kansas Memory project, a booklet called Lays of the Immigrants, as sung by the second party for Kansas on their departure from Boston Tuesday, August 29th, 1854. What are lays? What is a lay? That's a type of ballad. How would you put it? It has a heroic cast to it. It's self-consciously historic. You know, somebody that says there should be a song about this. This is something important going on. It should be commemorated. The famous one is number 1 in this booklet, The Kanzas Emigrants, spelled with a Z, K-A-Z-A-S, which is the poem by John Greenleaf Whittier, which is commonly sung to the tune of Auld Lang Syne. The second lay, ballad in this booklet is Song of the Kanzas Immigrants, and this leads to a lot of confusion. People think this one's by Whittier also. It is not. Tonight's theme is, what do we call it? Forgotten Balladeers of the prairies. And the attribution is to someone named T.B.H. Now, I've been matching that up with the known rosters of the New England Emigrant Aid Society and other anti-slavery poets of the time. I can't figure this out. I don't know who T.B.H. is, but nobody else does either, so I don't feel too bad. This is one of our forgotten balladeers of the prairies. He's the author of the Kansas Immigrants. Now, you need to know a little bit more about this, maybe, and I'm about to invite Dr. Kelley into it's not the hot seat, although it's good and warm by the fire. to read a little bit of background about the New Immigrant Aid Society's second party setting out from Boston. She's reading from an article by Louise Berry. If you know Kansas history, Louise Berry is the grande dame of the Kansas State Historical Society for about a full generation in mid-20th century. Her article in 1943 on the New England Emigrant Aid Society parties, specifically the passages about the second party that was singing these songs. Give it to us, huh?
Okay. On August 12, 1854, at a meeting of the Emigrant Aid Company trustees, the date August 29 was decided upon for the departure of a second party for Kansas. The following notice, published in Eastern papers, advertised the event as such. The second party for Kansas, under the auspices of the Emigrant Aid Company, will leave Boston on Tuesday, 29th instant, at 2 1/4 o'clock. It will go by the way of Albany, Buffalo, Lake Erie, Detroit, Chicago, Alton, and St. Louis. Fare to Kansas City, $25. Meals extra. 100 pounds of baggage allowed per passenger. Signed, Thomas H. Webb, Secretary of the Emigrant Aid Company, Boston. The Boston Journal described the group which assembled at the Boston Depot on August 29 in this way. The second party of immigrants from New England for Kansas started from the Boston and Worcester Depot yesterday at 2:15. The party numbered 67 in all, 8 or 10 of whom were females and about a dozen children from the age of infancy to that of 15 or 16 years. The larger part of the adults of the party, we should judge, were under 35 years of age, and taken together, they were a company of which New Englanders need not feel ashamed. The party embraced individuals from various parts of New England. Among them were a party of 3 or 4 from Hartford, Vermont, who are musicians and had their instruments with them. Several had their rifles with them. The emigrants assembled in the ladies' room of the Lincoln Street Depot at 1:30, and there sung the beautiful song written by Whittier, commencing,
"We crossed the prairies as of old, pilgrims crossed the sea to make the west, as they the east, the homestead of the free."
After a few moments' pause, the song of the Kansas immigrants, written for the occasion, was also sung, to the music of the missionary hymn. The party then proceeded to the Albany Street Depot and embarked on board the train. The conductor of this group was Charles H. Branscombe. 2 other agents of the Emigrant Aid Company, Dr. Charles Robinson and Samuel C. Pomeroy, were also in the party. At stations along the way, additional emigrants boarded the train until the total number was twice the original 67.
From eastern hill and valley, from ocean's distant shore, we come with hearts rejoicing, and on by thousands pour. 'Tis freedom calls us hither, for freedom's sake we roll. Midwestern wild in freedom's cause, we make our happy home. In close array advancing, united hand in hand, plant our flag triumphant on freedom's holy land, and ne'er shall dark oppression its terror spread around. No crouching slave shall ever curse our consecrated ground. yet unseen, or stay our feet unweary by Kanzas' flowing stream. And there with hands unfettered our altars we will raise, with voices high uplifted we'll sing our Maker's praise. His hand shall still sustain us, His love our paths surround, His mighty power uphold us in solitudes profound. To Him we'll build a temple, mid anthem swelling peal, and there alone free labor in humble trust shall yield. From eastern hill and valley, from ocean's distant shore, we come with hearts rejoicing that on by thousands pour. 'Tis freedom calls us hither, for freedom's sake we roll. Midwestern wilds and freedom's cause will make our happy whole. And I wonder what instruments were there. You know, we, across the rest of the country, we've probably forgotten what a hearth of folk and popular music New England once was, with the Hutchinson family singers and the great groups like that. You know, all the folk singers that we know of, you know, the New Christie minstrels and all those from the 60s. They're really inspired more by this than anything else from that Northeastern tradition. Well, can you stick around here just a little bit?
A moment or two.
You got anything going on at NDSU Press these days?
Yeah. Today I had a meeting with students, and you heard me talk many times about how essential student assistance is to what we do, but it's also a learning experience for them and preparing them for work at a press maybe or a nonprofit, but giving them some skills. Today we were talking about organizing.
Oh.
So we've got planning.
Who could tell me about that?
It works. We've got 2 teams of students who are working on 2 books. We actually have 5 books in production right now. So 2 teams of students learning how to do every step of production, including the copy editing and marketing and developing plans. But also I met with 2 other students today who are working on behind the scenes type things, developing announcement postcards, working on mailing lists, and just plotting out what the next few months are going to look like.
How do you keep track of what book is on at what stage?
Have you heard of a Gantt chart before?
I don't think I want to.
Okay. Well, we do have a scheme for how we can juggle all the various stages that different books are at. Not just the ones in production, but the ones who have come out recently and are working their way through the pipelines for distribution, all those things going on. Authors having events, and we do what we can do to facilitate their programs that they're out doing.
Well, okay. I'm glad you're not idle after
I'm not
the
idle.
big gala. You want to sidle back over into producer's position
Yes,
there, and we'll
Push
get on
some
to the
buttons.
next phase. Here, take this beagle dog with you too.
I think she'll go with me.
I think
Here we
so.
go.
I'm pretty sure
Here
she
we
will.
go.
I don't know what her problem is. Well, among the forgotten balladeers that we're sort of commemorating, although I tell you, this one, after studying the proposition, I'm not sure what to think of him. Some weeks ago, I sang, I think for the first time, a ballad called In the Bastille at Fargo, which is a little bit grandiloquent. It's a bootlegger ballad. It's written by a bootlegger in Prohibition days. This is 1929. This is going on. That's North Dakota's dry at the time. And he's been caught in Steele County, and they send him down to Cass County Jail in Fargo to serve a 10-month sentence for possession with intent to sell. I suspect he was a well-known character. I think you'll hear a little bit about that from Dr. Kelley here in a moment. A couple things about this thing, though. Then I thought, let's bring this forward and let's give it the treatment and deposit it in the songbag tonight. And one of them was I realized what tune to sing it to, and it was really some of the cadence within the lines and certain phrases. And I realized, oh my goodness, this is an outlaw ballad. This is on the pattern of Brennan on the Moor, an Irish highwayman's ballad. And as soon as I got that, then the whole thing fell into place as far as to how to sing it. And the second thing was, as I looked into the background of Archie L. Baker, the author of the ballad, I realized there is some unsavory context that's not evident in the ballad text unless you're really looking for it. So let's get that story. Could you give us some of the provenance of this ballad, Dr.
I'd be
K?
happy to. A remarkable and rare ballad of the Northern Plains is the confessional composition of one Archie L. Baker, a bootlegger languishing in jail in Fargo, North Dakota in 1929. His life and crimes, however, the basis of his lament, were situated in Steele County, not far from the little town of Luverne. From Baker's jailhouse ballad, penned from Fargo and published in the Hope Pioneer, it seems Baker was on the road with a delivery of goods, stopped for gas at Madson's garage in Luverne, and was taken into custody there. The sheriff, Dave Wennerstrom, finding a load of booze in the vehicle of Baker, gently escorted him to Findlay, the county seat, for charging. Baker got 10 months for transporting with intent to sell, the time to be served in the Cass County lockup, which Baker referred to as the Bastille of Fargo, and he stuck a hyphen in the middle of the word Fargo to indicate the city name was to be sung mournfully. Baker's jailhouse ballad is narrative and good-natured, not complaining about the jail or even its plight in general, seeming to regard it as part of the business. He dispenses mock advice to other jolly fellows to go straight and avoid the same fate. There was a more sinister undercurrent in Steele County, however.
Go on, tell us more.
Prohibition in North Dakota was a long, dry spell, stretching back from 1933, when the state fell in line with national repeal, to 1889, when the emerging state put a ban on alcohol beverages in its constitution. Before that, however, judging by ambiguous but indicative newspaper accounts, our Archie Baker's father, of the same name, was locally renowned for lavish entertainments. In November 1885, the Hope Pioneer, the local newspaper, noticed that quite a number of the Hope boys had been out to the senior Mr. Baker's farm over near Luverne and enjoyed not only a good time, but also a nice supper. Then, on Christmas Eve, there was quite a large social gathering at the Baker place, which the editor kindly noted was in Section 15, Township 143, Range 55.
In case you should need to find it, yes.
Pretty precise. The following year saw dances that lasted all night, at which point the Baker clan disappears from the historical record until 1914, when the Pioneer notes the marriage of the younger Baker, a prosperous young farmer living north of town, to a local girl named Winnie Baker, who may have been a relative by marriage. The wedding took place in Moorhead, Minnesota, a notorious resort for North Dakotans fleeing their own state's prohibition laws. Baker subsequently registered for the draft, but as a married farmer, his deferment was solid. The junior Baker, this prosperous young farmer from Steele County, was the man who ran afoul of the law in 1929.
Come all you jolly fellows and listen to my tale. I'll tell you about the trouble which landed me in jail, with only a few companions all along lonesome day. But by reading, singing, and playing cards, we pass the time away. They took us to Fargo, they took us to Fargo. Oh, the sheriff of Steele County, he took us to Fargo. It was on December 21st, into Madson's garage we drove.
M. Christ Madsen, a blacksmith in Luverne, had converted his business into a gas station and automobile garage. Madsen was an active member of the commercial community in the town, according to Hope Pioneer for March 1926.
Well, the sheriff of Steele County was standing by the stove.
Steele County Sheriff Dave Wenderstrom, who was also an auctioneer, had won election with twice as many votes as his opponent in 1928. Although the ballad is not explicit about the circumstances around his presence at the garage that day, it seems obvious Baker had been set up. The sheriff had been tipped off and was laying for him.
At first I did not mind it, but it sure gave me a jar when he started walking toward us, then began to search the car. Then he took us to Fargo. He took us to Fargo. The sheriff of Steele County took us to Fargo. Of alcohol and moonshine, aplenty he did find, for dispensing of this liquid was surely in our line. Then we slowly drove to Findlay, it's the county seat, you know, and now we're doing 10 months' time in the Bastille at Fargo. They took us to Fargo, they took us to Fargo. The sheriff of Steele County took us to Fargo. Now you that have your liberty, come please take my advice. Cut out the booze and gambling and throw away those dice, for they are sure to land you in the future far or near, far from your boon companions and those that you hold most dear. They took us to Fargo, they took us to Fargo. Oh, the sheriff of Steele County took us to Fargo. Now as each day goes fleeting by, it's one day near the end. And when I am released from here, I wonder if I'll have a friend. Although it's not so awfully bad, I'll warrant you all know there are places far more pleasant than the Bastille at Fargo. They took us to Fargo, they took us to Fargo. Oh, the sheriff of Steele County, he took us to Fargo.
After serving his term in jail, Baker disappears from local chronicles. He must have taken his entrepreneurial skills to some other locality where he was less known to the law. Madsen, the garage man, however, felt the repercussions of the events that took place at his establishment. A few months later, while returning to Luverne from Valley City with his family, he was run off the road by 4 men in a Buick. They dragged him from his vehicle, threatened his life, and pushed his car into the ditch. Madsen was saved by the arrival of 2 stout neighbors who overcame the bad men. One of them was charged in the incident, but nothing came of the charges. Then, some months after that, thieves broke into Madsen's garage, cleaned out the till, and stole some merchandise. These developments and the wry narrative of the ballad make it plain that it was dangerous to run afoul of a bootlegging ring in North Dakota countryside.
Yeah. I don't know what became of Mr. Baker after this. He seems to have lit out. And it's just as well, perhaps. have any friends with us?
We do.
This week?
In fact, some from Steele County.
Wait a minute. Ben is out there.
Ben is out there.
Okay, I was thinking, who will know where we're talking about when we say Laverne, Hope, and Finley? Yeah, Ben.
Not only can he tell us of those places, he describes the landscape quite beautifully here in a little paragraph.
And there is some beautiful landscape right in there.
And he reports he didn't know the Bakers, but he does know that the boys know how to have fun in Steele County.
Oh, do they? Still.
What? From a still? I don't know.
Well, both. Otherwise, no misbehavior going on tonight.
No misbehavior, but you seem to have sparked Joe Gardwin into thinking about jars of clear liquid.
That clear stuff will get you in trouble.
Lisa Ocean is out there too. We're going to see her in just a couple weeks. Oh, I guess maybe 3 weeks. But we'll be at the World Social Science Association conference, and Lisa will be there too. Tonight, though, she's opening up a can of beans for supper.
Poor woman, she should have been at our table. We did better. But we got tickets, Lisa. We'll see you out there in Tempe.
Yeah, I was feeling kind of sad at first, but she does report there's a hamburger to go with it. So retirement isn't all bad.
Well. Retirement, whatever that is. You know, been rummaging around. I'm teaching the historical research and writing course for NDSU again this spring. Spending a fair bit of time in the archives, kind of holding hands of my students who are diving into archival boxes for the first time. But I take a little time to track down some things for myself too. And I accidentally, I thought I was looking for, I thought I was in the Ole H. Olson papers, but I read the label, and I was in the Ole A. Olson papers. But here's this box of stuff. And it turns out Ole A. Olson is quite an interesting character. I'm looking at a little note from the archivists at the Institute for Regional Studies collection. Ole A. Olson, born 26th November 1878 at Tvedestrand, Norway, the oldest son of Andreas Olson and Bertha Elena Gudrumsen. 1882, Ole came to the U.S. with his mother and brother to Redfield, South Dakota. That would have been actually Dakota Territory at the time, where Andreas, the husband, had homesteaded the year before. They struggled against drought and poor prices. In 1890, moved over to Morris, Minnesota. I don't think they may have proved up before they left. That's something to track down and find out. After different employments, it says here, Ole himself, the young one, Ole Olson, and who I'm talking about, Ole A. Olson, homesteaded near Big Sandy, Montana in 1913. And there, I think he did prove up a claim, and he married a neighboring homesteader, Stella Henderson, in 1916. And they moved over to Fargo. They lived in Fergus Falls a while, and then back to Fargo. And come to middle of the 20th century, he connects up with Professor Sackett, who's one of the founders of the Institute for Regional Studies at NDSU, and starts bringing in stuff. And I may talk about some of the rest of that stuff here, but in the back of the box, it says poems on a folder. And I was so happily surprised by the quality of the writing of this homesteader, Ole A. Olson. I've got various compositions by Mr. Olson that will be coming before us in other weeks, but I've just cherry-picked one of them I'd like to share with you tonight. We are a long way from farmers taking to the field where we sit tonight. I don't know if there's any light still here when we signed on tonight, but you might have been able to see the depths of snow outside our windows. It'll be well into May before anybody takes to the field around here, if then. It'll be a late field work season here. Other parts of the prairies, though, it's getting darn close. And so maybe this song is for the people there. This song is entitled by Mr. Olson, "To Those Who Plowed with a Walking Plow." You whose hand never held a plow have missed the ecstasy of knowing how much fragrance is released from an upturned earth to which all plants that clothe and feed us owe their birth. You whose hatbands show no stains of sweat or labored hard till your clothes were wet, have passed up the thrill that come to those who sow and harvest crops that into food stuff go. If horny calluses adorn your grubby hand, be not ashamed of that, for you are tilling land from which the hungry hordes are fed, as indicated by their urgent cry for bread. Cooling feel of moistened earth beneath your stubby toes is a luxury that but a barefoot plowboy knows. Remuneration comes with setting of the sun, by knowing that the day of gainful work is done. You whose hand has never held a plow have missed the ecstasy of knowing how much fragrance is released from upturned earth to which all plants that clothe and feed us owe their birth. Thank you, Mr. Olson. Speaking of time in another manner of reckoning, We do have a little daylight fairly advanced on into the evening these days, don't we? But on the other hand, I got 2 hours of dark when I get up and start work in the morning.
You like that though, don't you?
No, I'm a little weary of it at this point. And I'm not going to cuss about it, but I might sing you a ballad about it. Since a week ago Sunday, I've been off my game. My head it is slow and my legs they are lame. I just can't do the things that I did in my prime. And I think it's because of daylight saving time. It happens to us every year in the spring. In the morning I look out and I can't see a thing. The theft of the sunrise is surely a crime. And it's happened because of daylight savings time. There's an hour been stolen and hidden someplace. Our canine detectives are working the case. The jaybirds and rabbits and deer be all chill, but the squirrels are persons of interest still. Now the milk has gone sour and the lettuce looks sad. The cheese is all moldy and and the eggs have gone bad. My guitar's out of tune and my poems won't rhyme. It's happened because of daylight savings time. This is my lament of the ungodly time. I could go on and on, but I've used up my dime. There's more on this subject that ought to be said, but the dogs are insisting that it's time for bed. And there is that mention of time again. And we probably are at time to wish you a fine weekend, especially any fans of Kansas State University basketball that are lurking out there tonight. Good luck. And we leave you with the fond hope that, maybe some of this stuff sticks a little bit, with a little more knowledge, appreciation, maybe even affection for this land where the deer and the antelope play. Across the prairie as of old, the pilgrims crossed the sea to make the west as they the east, the homestead of the free. The homestead of the free, my boys, the homestead of the free. To make the west as they the east, the homestead of the free. Where the deer and the antelope play, where seldom is heard a discouraging word, and the skies are not cloudy, all the day. No, the skies are not cloudy all day. Dr. Kelley.
We now conclude today's edition of the Folk School on Willow Creek. We invite you to join us again next Friday at 8 o'clock for more songs and stories.